Hello and welcome to the Esty Show. Today, our guest is Ben Siegel, CXO at some major startups. That's a Chief Customer Experience Officer. And we're going to be discussing customer experience and product management. Why talk about customer experience? Well, because there are three types of customer service. There's good customer service, there's bad customer service, and then there's no customer service at all. And sometimes that can be the best option. So for people who went to business school or read business books or just good old American capitalists, we take for a given that the customer always comes first. Amazon glorified the terminology of customer obsession and promise to the customer. But unfortunately, in the big scary world, good customer service is often at odds with the business goal or the short-term business goal. If you want excellent customer service and to refund the customer for the order they didn't want, then your business is going to lose money. And yes, the argument that's made is that if the customer is happy, that will serve your reputation well because they'll tell friends about your business, and as a result, your brand will improve. But very often, especially in companies where cash is tight and there are no strong values around customer satisfaction, all the profit and loss leaders will see is that the customer service team is bleeding money for them. And in that type of environment, it's very difficult to build out a team of customer service agents who wake up in the morning waiting to surprise and delight customers. Ben Siegel built out customer experience teams at a number of different companies, including Freshly, Pair Eyewear, and Thesis. And he has been a champion of customers from the very first day that I met him. I'm really excited to have this conversation and to share it with you. One more thing I want to bring up is that sometimes the best customer service is no customer service. And before you say, no, Esty, that can't be right, that's where good product management comes in. I don't know if you remember, but in 2019, if you had an issue with an Amazon order, on the app, you had the ability to request a callback. If you click that button, you would receive a phone call within seconds with an automated line that would ask, are you calling about order X? Yes or no? If you respond yes, has your order arrived? Yes, no. Do you want to return it? Yes, no. Great, we have issued you a refund. Please return it in the mail within 14 days. And at the time, I thought it was revolutionary because I didn't have to speak with a human being. But now you don't even need a phone call to do it. If you go through your orders in Amazon, you can just click on return and it will take you through all the steps. And within 4 to 5 clicks, you're all done and you have the money back in your account. Think about how much money in salaries and human expenditure is saved by providing this great customer service. And it's really a win-win because generally speaking, people don't like talking on the phone to someone else, making a case of why, yes, even though I did place the order and I did think I wanted that 25th Stanley mug, I had regret and don't want it anymore. So this episode is for anyone who works on products that have a customer-facing component, or for anyone who's a customer and wonders, how do businesses either afford to treat them well or afford to not treat them well? If you're a product manager, keep in mind that the customer service team is often underappreciated, undervalued. They usually deal with the most frustrated customers that you have and are taking garbage all day long. They have the best pulse on the customer. They understand pain points of the business like no one else. And if you as a product manager are able to take insights from the customer service team and translate them into how solving those problems will create value to the business, that's when you've struck gold. Really excited for this conversation to share it with you. Please don't hesitate to share your feedback, rate and review the show, and share it with someone who would appreciate it. Let's get into it. Ben, welcome to the show. I am thrilled to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. Pumped to be here.
Product management is known to be sisters with engineering, design, and data. And then the cross-functional partners differ based on what type of company it is. So very often there's operations, marketing, and one really big, important cross-functional partner is CX or customer service. And at least in many of the companies I've been at, it's almost an afterthought. It's like, oh, we need to have it because customers have needs, but it's not a pillar. It's not something that's prioritized. It's not how do we provide the best possible customer service. And there are, I went to business school. Some of the old school companies with good customer service are the Nordstroms, where they treat you very well. The more modern companies are the Zappos, and I'm sure we'll go through examples. But you were the first, or maybe the second, customer service partner who I've ever worked with, who wasn't just thinking about how do we become more efficient, how do we resolve more queries, how do we get our numbers better, but you were actually there and saying, how do we make sure we delight and excite our customers and literally improve their lives? It is such an honor to have you on and to have that discussion today with you.
Yeah, so pumped for it. Thank you. And I feel the same way. I come across people in product engineering that didn't think about the customer as much. So it feels good when someone else is on the other side of the table that thinks about the customer at the center of the experience as much as I like to think I do. And so it was like kindred spirits. And I just want to say thank you off the bat for being that way, because I also found that was rare. And so excited for this chat today.
Okay. Can we just do one example that we bonded over?
Sure.
I don't have a dog and my husband doesn't have a dog. However, he told me there was this company that a customer ordered or received a new shipment of dog food. And he wrote back saying, can I return this because my dog died? And he was shocked that not only did they refunded him, they told him keep it, and they sent him a bouquet of roses as condolences. And the shocking thing was he posted about it on Twitter, and all the comments on Twitter were like, oh my God, they did that to me too. And when I told you about that example, you already knew about it.
I did.
So can you talk a little bit about that? And
Sure.
For people in product management, and most of this audience is our product managers, give us a little bit of a window into that world of customer service.
Sure. So for that specific one, without naming the company, they would hold a CX summit at their CX office. And so I got to go out and attend that, where I spent multiple days with everyone that touches the CX department. Many of them were product managers or engineers. And the thing that stood out to me the most from that whole summit was they're talking about this. Not just trying to surprise and delight, high-paying customers or high lifetime value users, but people who were in a life moment. And in this case, right, someone who was using the product because they had a dog that now is no longer alive. From a business standpoint, you might see that as they don't have a need to shop with us anymore, right? But they never thought about it that way. They thought about it as this unbelievably touching, genuine moment where how can we improve that? How can we help? How can we make this feel better for the whole experience, right? Not just this user, but their family and their friends. And so there was someone on the CX team who was really, really good at drawing. And so her mind was, can I ask for a picture of the dog? Or if we have ever seen a picture of the dog, could we draw it and write a little note and, not just refund, but send a note with this little postcard with a drawing of their dog saying how sorry we feel and how, anything we can do to help or be of service. Let's try to do that. Without the thought that they might come back later or again. That wasn't the purpose, even though that may be the outcome. And of course, like you noticed, it got a little bit too hard to scale, right? To draw every single dog that had passed away or that was canceling. And so they had to think of other innovative ways to say, how can we still maintain that moment? And so they put together a proposal for a budget and said, what could we send? How many could we send per day? And they still do that to this day. Not all these, bouquets of roses or things like that, but gestures that are not terribly expensive, but that show that person, we hear you, we care about you, you're not just a number. And we don't see you as someone who's churning right now. We see you as someone in need. And if we can help you, we will. And
was the name of this company Farm Dog or no?
Yeah, the one I'm speaking of was Bark. But yes, Farm Dog tried to copy what Bark was doing.
So
A farmer's dog, I think.
Farmer's dog.
Yeah.
So you're saying an environment where someone thinks that way, someone who draws that way says, hey, I'm going to take time out of my day and draw a sketch for this dog owner, for a customer. What kind of environment needs to be in place for someone to feel empowered to do that? Because I've been in environments where I've had a lot of conversations, seen different examples, both as a customer, and on the delivery side, where the emphasis is on closing out tickets, resolving issues. There's influx. What do we need to get you? And then if someone goes above and beyond that, it's actually viewed as a detriment to that other customer who's in line, or you're overextending yourself. So there's almost this disincentivization of going the extra mile.
Yeah.
What needs to happen at a leadership level, at an environment, at a cultural level for someone to be able to think that way and feel empowered enough to do something about it?
Sure. Two things. And one, I heard you say a buzzword that I hear again and again in my career. And I have found that if you change it a little bit, you can get a lot further. So you said go the extra mile. I like to talk about going the extra inch. It's more attainable. I'll talk about what I do in my trainings. But if you can, usually it starts with the finance side. If you can show that investing in the CX department, in the customer experience, which I think has many more touch points than just calls, chats, emails. But if you can show that investing there is a cost savings for the business because they're able to, retaining a customer is cheaper than acquiring a new one. They're having that sort of like brand ambassador now go out to the world is going to help you acquire new customers anyway. So if you can start to tell that story, then when we talk about investing, the right people and the right tech stack into the CX org, you can create an environment where it's not as stressful. What you were describing with the backlog of tickets and just trying to get through, that's the reality a lot of times if you are understaffed, if you're not, investing in the right sort of tools. It's going to feel like, oh my God, there's thousands of tickets and we only have these amount of people to get through those tickets. There's no time to talk about surprise and delight or what could we do to, really help the customer here. We literally do just have to get through this inbox because the longer they wait, the more they're going to blow up social media, the more this is going to become a disaster. And so it starts early by saying we need to invest here with people, with technology, to create a less stressful environment so that it isn't that sort of feeling of a backlog with only this many people trying to get through it. So we can start to have these conversations of going the extra inch, I call it. So I want to touch on that for 1 second. When I was training large teams, and I did this recently when I spoke at a conference, if you ask everybody in the room to stand up and reach up as high as they can, they will all tell you that they are. And then when you say, okay, go a little higher, you're going to see that they all will, right? They'll try to stay on their tippy toes. They'll all reach up a little bit more. I say, okay, sit down. Let's talk about that. The extra inch is attainable, right? Everybody knows it's right there and we can grab it. And so we have to think about in our business, how could we do that? For the girl who was drawing at the dog company, that was the extra inch for her, right? She couldn't go out of her way to refund all orders, to send them a new puppy. Like that's the extra mile. It's unattainable. It's not scalable. It just doesn't work. But in her world, she felt for that customer. She knew she could draw. She was like, let me just sit here at my desk and scribble. I'll just write this in here. I have their address right in front of me. I'll just throw it in an envelope and send it. She didn't think, oh, would this scale? How would I do this more? She just said, what could I do? And that was her going the extra inch. A leader sees that and goes, oh my goodness, we could scale that. How could we scale that? Let's do more of that. But it starts with everyone wanting to go that small extra inch that's within their capacity.
Can I add one more insight and tell me if it's correct or not? From my perspective, investing in customer service is also the difference between thinking short-term and thinking long-term.
Yes.
If you're thinking short-term and you want to prioritize profits for today, then you want your costs to be as low as possible, and you want your customer purchasing today. Yes. You care much less if they'll still purchase tomorrow or not. If you're thinking long-term and you're thinking, I'm not around just for the first order, or if it's a subscription, the first 2 orders, because they'll forget to cancel their second order. And then I'll just find a new customer. But instead, you're thinking, how do I develop an emotional relationship? So I'm with this person forever. And in the example of the dog company, the percentage of dog owners who have a dog who passed away and then they adopt a second dog, what is it, 80, 90%?
Yes.
It's extremely high. So if they have a relationship with this dog food company, whatever it is, it might not be this month, it might not be this year, but they will come back because of that relationship you've built and because you've shown, I don't care just for your dollars, but I also care for your dog.
Right. Exactly. Which in the long term is good for business. It's just that we're not doing it for that purpose. And I think that's what you have to get across to people who are solely focused on what is good for business right now, immediately this quarter. A lot of what we do in CX is good for the customer, which is always good for the business. You just might have to wait to see that longer tail.
What if you're, let's say, on a leadership board? You're an executive and you're representing customer service, and then across from you is, and they have different terms for these roles. It could be head of finance. It could be a general manager. The bottom line, it's the person who's responsible for profitability. It's the person who's responsible for dollar and cents. And they're saying, Ben, it's so nice. You're so sweet. You're not thinking about revenue. It's not just about dollars and cents. But for me, it really is. Because if it doesn't get there, I'm not getting my bonus. We're not hitting our numbers. We're not exiting, whatever. Mm-hmm. What's the best counter argument to that? Or is there a point where you say, maybe culturally, we're not on the same place if we don't value this piece?
I think the answer is sort of both. At the beginning, you can start to have that debate and try to explain to them a couple of the points that I mentioned here, right? That it's cheaper to retain a customer than go acquire a new one. So let's be as kind and as courteous to those that we currently have. And here's what that means, dollar and cents wise. You're going to spend this. I'm going to retain this number of customers. That's going to save you this much on acquisition costs. That helps me do what I do in like putting forward a great experience. And it will show, Mr. Finance guy or girl, that they will see their return that they need to see to make sure that, business is operating well. This can show in, LTV. This can show in brand reputation. And I can try to put it into cost savings, although it's harder to show that in the short term. If all that doesn't work and they're just saying, we don't have the time to wait for all of that. And so I just have to make this work because we literally have this goal that we have to hit. We may find that we are not aligned in how we think about the customer. I'm fortunate in my career that I haven't come across that too much. But when I do, it's a tough conversation to have. And it's difficult to sit across from someone who you believe is working at this business, who has, you would believe or hope that the customer is center of mind, right? We're all here because of the customer. But I have found that, there are instances where they don't. And that's really difficult because I still believe in my heart of hearts that the nice guy who is head of CX, who is here to do right by the customer, is also doing what is best for the dollars and cents at the end of the day. Just maybe not on the same timeline. But I'd like to think that we are on the same page. I'm not here to give money away. We're all here to make money. But we can do that in a way that makes sure that the customers feel they are at the center of our world. And that at the end of the day, that's what will drive this business to succeed in the long run. I just watched a great piece I don't want to cut off, but it just popped in my head. I don't know if you saw it, about the 99-cent Arizona iced tea.
Tell me.
You have not seen this? You have to look this up. The CEO of the company, the CEO of the company was asked in an interview, how are you selling this big can of Arizona iced tea still for 99 cents? Like, you can double that. You can triple that. And he was like, but why? Why would I? Right? We have no debt. We own everything. The company's doing well. It's been doing well forever. The person who's buying that needs $1 big drink, especially in a hot summer like we're in right now. What am I going to do to make myself slightly more profitable, to double the cost of that, to just squeeze somebody else a little bit more? it's his little way of giving back and saying like, yeah, you can still get that for 99 cents. And I have no intention of raising the price of that anytime soon. You can get this big can of iced tea for $1. And it just struck me as like, you can be a very successful, business that does extremely well and does right by the end user. And I like to think that anywhere I've come across in my career, I try to do both.
Increase the price and therefore increase the profit.
We're successful. We're debt-free. We own everything. Why? Why have people who are having a hard time paying their rent have to pay more for our drink? Maybe it's my little way to give back.
Would you definitively say that you'll never raise that 99 cent price?
Never. Not in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
We're going to fight as hard as we can for consumers.
Something that's coming across to me as you're speaking, as you're giving the story, like as someone on the business side, you're always thinking where are there additional opportunities to generate more revenue, right? Because in this country, the way the stock market works, if you have excellent sales numbers, revenue, profitability this year, and then next year or next quarter, you post the same exact numbers.
No growth.
It's no growth, so it's horrible. That type of mentality leads to, well, it's 99 cents, but it could be $1.99. And I think that's why it's so unusual for someone to say, I'm going to leave it at $1. I'm not going to raise the price. So are you almost saying it's like being the advocate for the customer in the business?
Yeah. I don't think anybody, at least in the Arizona iced tea world, would think that they haven't grown or that they won't see increased revenue. But they'll come up with a different product and sell to a different customer base and have a different price point. I think we can agree that you can find a limit to what you can or should charge for a can of iced tea. And it was great to hear the CEO say that, right? He wants the growth too. He wants to keep growing the business. He's not here to just be a charity. But he doesn't have to squeeze everywhere all the time, right? Decide where, decide how. And growth should not be at the expense of your lifeblood, right? The customer. And so find other customers, have other products, right? See where there is room to continue to raise the price. But don't just look at it and go, that'd be easy. I could charge double for that can of iced tea. I'll just do that. That's not right. It's not doing right by the customer, and they'll leave, right? The long-term tail of that is that those who could afford it now can't, and they feel more negatively about your brand. And now they won't shop on the other products that you could have marketed to them because they feel so positive about you because you sell $1 can of soda or iced tea. And I love when I heard that come from someone who was in that CEO founder seat. Made me feel like, okay, there's hope.
What makes the difference between a company that has good customer service and poor customer service? Is it the quality of the agents? Is it the leadership? Is it the incentive and payment system? What does it come down to? And then I'll just group in the second question. Maybe you'll take it at the same time. What are the components that constitute a successful customer service?
Sure. All of those things factor into it. But if you do all those things well, you will show consistency. What I have found in the best brands that have the best CX, I can tell you for certain, that it will be consistent all the time, right? You know that they're going to be good. You know what they're going to deliver. And even though it's not rocket science, it's just being kind, being courteous, having decent policies that do right by the end user. Knowing that that's not going to change and that your SLAs are always going to be there no matter what, they're going to hit them. That to me makes me want to build trust. When I reach out and I'm having those interactions, I want to make sure that there's empathy. I want them to know like they care about me, they see me, they know who I am. And I think like the cherry on top is being proactive, right? If I don't have to reach out to you. So if you are consistent, you're empathetic, and you're being proactive and telling me what's going on, these are the things that separate like good CX from negative CX and help sort of get this lasting impression in my mind of like, oh my goodness, they're great. I will shop with them again. I want to go back to them because I know I can trust them.
You mentioned one thing about policies, and I'm trying to sort of get to that a little bit about environment. So let's say you have a great customer service team or great agents who are going the extra inch, but at the same time you have a policy of we don't refund orders, we don't accept returns. That creates a tension where it makes it almost impossible, no matter how polite someone is, if a customer is pissed off and wants a refund for their product that didn't work, and you're like, I can't give it to you, that doesn't help. How crucial is it to have policies that support positive customer experience? And who in the business, how involved should the customer service team be in creating those policies and influencing those policies?
They should drive those policies because they're the ones who are implementing them. So what I believe has happened, or what I've seen, is that let's call it the business people, the finance person, right? Whoever is in that position of trying to make sure we're profitable, they do not feel like they have control on a case-by-case basis over the CX team and who they're interacting with and what they can do. So they have to have these blanket policies. No refunds, no exchanges, no returns, no whatever. Because if we can't pick and choose where we want to be nice or how we want to be more strict, we have to go with like straight strict and make sure that we're not giving the house away. That's where those policies come from. So what I try to do is put what I call an accommodations guide in place. An accommodations guide allows you to say, in these scenarios, this is what we deem is appropriate accommodation. Maybe that's a stored credit. Maybe that's a return. Maybe that's a replacement item. Whatever those things are, we define what is like step one that the agent is empowered to do. If they need to escalate, what is step two? And if they really need to escalate, what do we do on step three? Right? And all these things are laid out. You pitch this, of course, to the CX team who's going to love it because all they want is the SOP. Just tell me what I can follow. Tell me the rules, I'll follow it. And they're empowered. They know immediately off the bat without asking. Yeah, no problem. I can help you out. I'll give you 20% off next week, or I'll give you a replacement order right now because this says I'm empowered to do that. Makes the agents feel empowered, makes the customer feel like I don't have to wait. I don't have to get escalated. I don't have to get kicked around. You know what you can do. I'm empowered to do so. But when you show this to money person, they go, oh, there's a process. We're following something. I can look at this week over week and say, we gave away 5% accommodations as a percentage of revenue. Okay, that's reasonable. I was expecting 7. You did okay this week. If you breach 7, I'm going to come talk to you. We're going to edit the accommodation guide, and we're not going to give 20%. We're going to give 10%. We're not going to default to replacement item. We're going to default to stored credit and only escalate to replacement item. Right now, I can twist and turn where I need to make sure that we stay below whatever percentage of accommodation as a percentage of revenue week over week. And now money person is on board with CX person, and we're attacking this together versus having blanket policies because we didn't think we could, pick and choose where we want to be nice or be mean.
So that's very interesting. You're saying rather than have blanket policies, which is what I've seen in most places, it's like we don't accept refunds past 30 days, or we only refund you if you didn't utilize service X, but if you had one visit, we'll charge you for a month, even though you were here for a minute and a half.
Right.
And you're saying come up with a menu of items and a tiered process,
right,
and empower the person dealing with the situation to work through a process that's depending on how the customer reacts in real time.
Yes, exactly.
If we think of wartime strategy, it almost makes me think that people were talking about this at the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war, how like the Russian army was, the general sitting in Moscow and telling the soldiers in the battlefield what to do, and they wouldn't accept they wouldn't let them make any decisions on the ground. Yeah. So all the tanks were drowning in the mud, and they couldn't get the food to the soldiers, so it was just a disaster.
Right.
Whereas the Ukrainian army, at least at that point, was much more nimble, and the units were operating independently and making their decisions as they were going.
Exactly. Yeah, I believe in that 100%.
In terms of bottom line, so how a good customer service team will help the business. So you've mentioned customer retention. It does seem obvious maybe not. And I'll ask you about this in a second. So customer retention and lifetime value. Typically when a customer reaches out, they're not reaching out to tell you how much they love you.
Correct.
They're reaching out because they have a problem or worse.
Yep.
So I think in many cases, businesses look at it like, okay, X% of customers won't like us anyways. X% of customers will want to cancel. Is it too late to be working on retention, to be working on lifetime value? How much of a difference could a good customer service team actually have at that point where a customer has a problem?
Yeah. So the way I view that is, and I don't know what kind of customer you are in your life, but I'm definitely in this bucket. If something is wrong, I'm not going to reach out. I'm not going to try to go ask for the refund. I'm not going to go through the hoops. I'm not going to do the call, chat, email. I'm just going to know, all right, that sucked. I thought it was going to work out. I don't want to go through the hassle. I'm not wasting any more time on this. I'm moving on. I'm gone. Those people are lost. And I believe that those are the majority. And so we know that based on what percent of orders last week reached out. So let's say we shipped out 1,000 boxes last week, and this week we have 100 tickets. There's no world where 90% of those people had no problem whatsoever. A good chunk of them had some issue. It wasn't up to expectations. There was an issue. There was a mispack. There's something was in there, and they just said, screw it. And they wrote it off, and they didn't reach out. On the 10% that did reach out, this is an opportunity. So even though you're right, and they're reaching out because they don't love us, there's something is wrong, these are the people who are willing to give us a shot. They're taking the time out of their day to reach out to us through whatever channel they choose to, because they think there's something still winnable here. It's just a matter of how are they going to deal with me? Are they going to be nice? Are they going to work with me here? Are they going to send me a new one? I want this to work. I made it all the way through the funnel, right? I checked out. I'm one of those 1, 2, 3, 4%, whatever it was, that made it all the way through everything, who got targeted 1 million times, and I purchased. I want this to work. And if I fall in that bucket where it didn't, and I'm reaching out, I firmly believe that this is where CX can impact retention, because they're giving us the opportunity by reaching out. It's the others who disappeared and never purchase again. They're lost in the abyss. Good luck. Send them retention emails all you want, win back emails. Give them discount codes, and be surprised that so few actually click through and come back. But why not? The email was free. We'll send it. But here, when you have a real live human interaction, this is an opportunity to keep them. And so I truly believe that if we invest in the CX team, be it in people, in tools, in process, it's a cost worth spending, because these are the customers saying, please save me. I don't want to go. Can you prove to me? Can you show me that it's worth staying here? What are you going to do to make this right for me? And sometimes that means letting them go. But if they genuinely are reaching out saying, let's say subscription business, I want to cancel. I remember when I was at Freshly, this was something we tested a lot. Do you try to keep them, or do you just let them go as quickly as possible? And we found letting them go as quickly as possible is a surprise to them. They didn't expect that. They thought they were in for a fight. And so when they find out that they could just go, they're like, oh, really? That was it? Yeah, that's it. You're all set. You're all done. Thanks so much. Have a good day. And they go, oh, that wasn't pressure. I'll come back. I'll try it again. I thought it was going to be a fight. I thought I was locked into this. I thought you guys were not going to give me my last charge back. You just charged me today. I didn't get that food yet. We go, yeah, no problem. We didn't ship those meals. Refunded, canceled, no problem. Hope you come back soon. And almost all will. Because they just didn't want it this week. They just didn't want to be stuck, with a noose around their neck here. So depending on what it is that the customer needs, even if that means, churn, let it happen. Be as kind and courteous as we can throughout the whole process, and you actually have a shot to get them back. It's these crazy, blanket policies that say no, 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 or these, insane IVRs that make you click around here 50 million times. These are the things where they go, I thought I was going to give it a shot, but it was such a hassle. I'll never go back. Right. So this is where we win them back.
And can you just explain for the audience what an IVR is?
Oh, yeah. So we've all,
click 5.
Yeah, we're all the victims of the IVR. We just don't know it has a title. But when you call into some business, right now my car is in the shop. So I was just dealing with calling into a big car company, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. Or even worse, they try to do it, through voice. Pick one of these options. Is it this? Is it this? You say, sorry, I didn't get that. Can you repeat that? Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you repeat that? Oh my God. Right.
Yeah. You feel like smacking your phone against the floor.
I've gotten to listen to the recordings because I'm on the other end of those IVR sometimes. And you can hear the customer saying, oh my God, 0, right? There was a podcast I used to
with the
listen
manager.
to. Yeah. Manager, 0, human, get me somebody. There was a podcast called Spamming 0. Where they know that everyone's just sitting 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Get me to somebody, get me out of here. But yeah, that's what an IVR is. And usually you're trying to do it to route you to the right team. But it's frustrating, right? No customer wants to sit through that.
Speaking about humans versus technologies, and it looks like for some of them, the technologies are not up to par. One of the best, most customer-centric companies out there is Amazon. And they do have a customer service option. I'll tell you what I like about it. But their philosophy is the best customer service is no customer service. So they identify the likelihood of the action. So if you click on an item and you click on, I want to return it, you'll be able to do the whole thing in 3 clicks alone, and they won't make your life difficult, and you don't have to speak to a human. And that makes returns so much more convenient. And sometimes you go through the process and you never end up making it to the return box, but you don't have any gripes towards Amazon because it's all on you. Like you didn't do what you were supposed to do, but if you wanted to, it was so easy. And the option they do have for speaking with a human, and it's very difficult to find, but once you do get there, they say, okay, you ready? And you click yes, and they call you immediately. So it's like none of that waiting on the phone for 10 minutes. Wait again, we'll speak to someone. So my question to you is, they say customer service is one of the first thing that's going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. Is the best customer service, no customer service? How important is the human factor for a good customer experience? Or is there something else that's crucial to good customer service?
So there's so many in there, and I agree with sort of all of that. Let me touch on the Amazon piece first. I do agree that no service is the best service, but that's in an ideal world. And the way that they have laid that out is exactly what I would do if I had unlimited resources as well, right? So if money was no option and we can do everything we wanted to, and we didn't care as accommodations as a percentage of revenue because we're long beyond a startup and that's okay, sure. I would allow for all that to happen, and they know for certain you will be back, right? Because they've proven it. They're unbelievably convenient. There is nobody else like them. Anything you need, they have. So like they're in such a position of strength that they can have that sort of level of service. So I think everybody else in Earth 2 over here, we deal with different rules, and so we're trying to get to that level of service without the number of resources that they have available to them. But I agree with what they do. I agree with what they say. But it's just not possible or feasible in many other businesses. So living in that reality, going on to the next piece about AI and humans, I do not think that 100% of customer interactions can or should ever be put through AI. And so there will be a lot of AI used all over CX. And I think that's one of the big ones for sure. I don't know if there's going to be a need for teams in the hundreds anymore, because such a large chunk of conversations can be really well served by AI, not just like deflected. That's a change even in the last 6 months to a year. But there will always be a need for humans like us to want to express themselves to another human, because they believe that they are, I always do this all the time, like a VIP, a very individual person. We are all VIPs, right? We all have individual needs. And so our world is important to us, and we believe that we are different or unique, and that our situation doesn't fit into that exact box if you wanted me to. And so there will always be some percent that even if the AI technically could have served this issue, that customer doesn't want to be served in that way. They want to make sure that a human hears it, confirms it, and helps them out. So I don't know what that number is, 5, 10, 20%, something like that. will always be handled by a human, and AI will replace, more than half of the interactions for sure. But it will never be 100%.
That's so interesting. And in my head, I'm thinking maybe a comparison to shopping online for groceries, which is totally doable versus going to a store. And then even in the stores, there's a hierarchy. Like when I go to Trader Joe's, I just want to give a hug to the cashiers. It makes me happy. It changes my entire day.
Yeah.
Versus going to another store where it's last minute and I don't have something, so I have to run out and get it.
Right.
So one thing you mentioned, back to the business side, is that good customer service can help with cost savings. And I'm not sure I'm catching the logic there. So I was hoping you could fill me in.
So how do I think investing in CX gets you actual cost savings?
Yeah.
Sure. So let's play it out and say we don't invest in CX, right? We have 1,000 tickets in the inbox and we're dealing with 5 people here that are supposed to manage that. There's no AI technology. It's just these 5. Get to it when you get to it. Who cares about SLA? Like, maybe they'll go away by the time we reach out to them. Like, if that's our vibe, you can imagine that a lot of those customers are never going to come back, right? A good percent. Some will. Some, it wasn't that serious. It wasn't, the end of the world. They wanted a replacement. You didn't get back to me for a week. I don't know. I don't care. I'll come back. It was fine. But a good portion will be gone. In that world, we went through who knows how much spend on the marketing side to acquire that customer, get them to check out, get them to make a purchase, ship them this item, and they're now gone. I don't know every business's, but usually it's 3 orders, 4 orders before you actually start to make back a profit on that customer after the amount of money you've spent to get them. So if you just got them at 1 and they're even refunded 1, or you got them for 1 but they refunded number 2, this is unbelievably costly to the business. And we can show that. Like if I start to put these cohorts out there that they're all assuming are going to convert and stay for X amount of purchases, and I say, well, they were all impacted by this type of service, so therefore they will not, and they will leave after 2. We can start to plan out and say, if they were responded to in real time, if we could have saved them, and that percentage of that cohort did stay on to order 3, order 4, order 5, what would that have done? And I think you can start to make the business case that good service, helping retain customers further on, is going to drive more business, more money back into the business than any amount of money we could ever spend on CX, right? It's not that expensive. We just need to make sure that we're doing the right thing and doing right by our customers.
You mentioned emails that go out, but I think we've established pretty early in the conversation, if you just have a good CX team, but everything around it is rotten, it's going to be hard to get good customer service to the team.
Yes.
So as product managers who are thinking about user experience, basically the product people will interact with, customers will interact with, what's the best partnership that could exist between product, and I'm talking about product holistically, like the whole engineering situation, and customer experience?
Couple things. I think the biggest piece is establishing a really good feedback loop, right? We always say that we have it, but I haven't seen it so much in practice. I think it is vitally important that the issues that come into the CX team have a path that gets back to the product engineering team as quickly and as consistently as possible. We need to be making constant improvements, right? Innovating more. The CX team is on the front lines. They're the ones capturing that. I've seen this, and I know you have too, where there's like UX researchers and like product designers that are trying to go out and have interviews with users. And they might get 6, they might get 10, they might get 12. And now they're going to build these very pretty decks and say, I talked to these users, these are the pain points. And now we believe that the pain of these few users who went through your interview and your tests speak for everything. When the CX team is sitting on thousands and thousands of interactions that are solely focused on the pain points of your specific business, and they're screaming at the top of their lungs what they wish were different about it. I understand when something is new and you're trying to release it, that it makes sense to like, do beta testing, things like that. And that's where it's common. But I am surprised, I'm shocked that I have not seen the level of effort or like the regularity to saying there's somebody on the product team whose whole job is to look at that inbox all day, every day, and be like, that is my user research. How do I make sure we're getting valuable insight out of that mountain of data that they're sitting on? Usually these are two separate worlds. And so I want to make sure that there's like very clean alignment between the product team and the CX team, which is something that I tried my hardest at Freshly to do. It's why I went to General Assembly and got certified as a product manager, because I felt like I couldn't sit in those rooms or have those conversations because I didn't know their world well enough. I knew the CX world really well, but I couldn't speak their language. I didn't know about sprint planning. I didn't know what an API was or an SDK was. And they would, throw out these buzzwords and I would be like, I don't know. I just know the customer's hurting. I'm trying to fix it. Like, they're like, yeah, but I don't know about prioritization. I don't know where that's going to fit in the backlog. And I was like, where is this backlog you speak of? How do I get it prioritized? Like, I just didn't know what to do. So I wanted to learn the language so that then I could sit in those rooms and go, okay, I get it. You're not just trying to crap on the CX world. You have your job to do and you're trying to build great new things and like make a better experience that you hope will grow the business further. But if I can speak your language and tell you why what is currently here is broken and makes the new thing null and void because we have to fix this first, maybe we can have a real conversation.
Very interesting. Let's talk about examples of good product experience, of good customer experience. If you could give examples either from your world of companies you've worked with, or sort of what are the golden standard examples, what would like 2 or 3 stories that come to mind be?
Sure. So there was this one very recently that's not necessarily at like a brand, but it's at a restaurant and it was real. It was in person. It was human. And so I want to mention it because like it's the essence of what is great customer experience. I have 2 little kids, right? I know you recently had a kid too. And so I have a now about to be 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so we don't go out often, right? To take them out to the restaurants because it's a lot. It's a hassle. But I did recently go out to a restaurant in White Plains here called Emma's Ale House. I'd never been before. And I only went because my daughter's name was Emma. So I thought it'd be cool to go there and my son would recognize the name because he started to spell. And so we're like, all right, we'll try it. We'll give it a shot. We went early so we don't bother other people because kids are a mess. And the server who walked in heard me and my wife talking to the kids about how it was called Emma's and trying to show them on the menu, spell the name. And my daughter Emma was 2, got all excited that like, oh, it's my restaurant. Oh, I have this restaurant. It's mine. So that was like this really cool moment. And the server overheard it and he went and he got hats that they have. I think they're selling for $25 a piece, right? Of the hats with the logo on it with the name. And he brought over 2, a green one for the boy and a pink one for the girl. And just put it on the heads. Didn't charge me anything for it whatsoever. Didn't expect that. Didn't ask for it. He was listening. He was being proactive about it. Brought it over. Made this like lasting impression that now like the kids will always remember they went to Emma's Ale House and like we'll have the hats. They'll wear them everywhere. And it just like blew me away that a moment like that is still possible and can still happen. And when we think in CX world that e-commerce companies, it's that. I'm trying to take that moment and see how I can do that at scale. How can we be listening, overhearing the conversation at the table in a world where we're not physically there, right? How can we pay attention and take cues for what they're doing or what do they not know? What's the question behind the question? Okay, they asked that. So if they asked that, it means they don't know this. So I should tell them that. I should be proactive about that. There's no macro for it, right? Like I have to know that. I have to be thinking about that, being proactive. And I think when I think about great CX, I'm thinking about this server whose name was Richard, and saying, how can we all be like Richard in our businesses when we're not standing next to that table?
What is a parallel example in a digital world where you're not overhearing conversations?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yep. So there's a lot of them. I've worked at a number of brands myself, and in this role now where I'm consulting, I'm with like a dozen or more brands at any given time. I love the one from the dog company earlier where they went out of their way to draw that note and send it off. We came back from that when I was at Freshly at the time, and thinking, okay, well, we don't have that exact situation, but what could we do? And so in the scenario where somebody would mention something to us, whether it was because they were canceling or just in passing, we would take note of it. And we tried to tag these as what we called like a life moment or a CX moment. So this could be a situation where someone is canceling their meal delivery service because their home just burnt down. And so they don't have a need for this. They don't have a place to put it. They don't know where the new address is going to be. And they don't need food. Like everyone in the whole community is going to bring them food, going to take them in. So like they don't want to be paying for this. And in all of the mess of everything they're going to have to deal with as the house burnt down and loss of all their personal items, they thought, oh shoot, Freshly's going to show up. Like I need to cancel my meal service. So when they reach out, of course, like I said earlier, you're canceled, no problem, no charge. You're going to be okay. But we would then tag this as a life moment. And we started to think about what could we do for them that's not just sending food. And so in that world, we thought there's going to be some rebuilding. There's going to be something that they're going to need to go and get, or an appliance that they had that they lost in the fire. So we had this app, I think it was called I Feel Goods. And so the agent was empowered with a certain budget per day to go into the I Feel Goods app and purchase a gift card for that user and send it to them digitally. So they sent them a $50 gift card to Home Depot. And huge shock, didn't expect that at all. I was just reaching out to cancel my meals. But they're saying like, hey, so sorry that happened to you. Wish we could do more. But here's our small gesture saying, I know you're going to be visiting this store soon. It's not us, but here's $50 towards that. It was a small budget. I don't think we spent $10,000 on it in a quarter. But think about those $50 increments up to $10,000. A lot of people got touched by these like little gems of, I mentioned something to them, having no thought that this would be of any interest to me or that it would return any like sort of gift card, in my world. And every single time we did it, it was this like incredible surprise that made them go, didn't expect that at all. One of the most, I guess, common use cases of it was they said they didn't get their meals, right? So it was supposed to show up that day and it didn't. And now they won't have it. And we're a weekly subscription. So I can't even send you a new one right now because like we're making the meals for everybody's orders for tomorrow. And like, this is all fresh food. It has to deliver it on time. And so the best I can do is give you a refund and a credit. That's it. But the real problem, and you'll understand this as a mom, is like, I thought that was coming for dinner tonight. And like, I worked all day. Like, I need food now. What's going on? Like, if it didn't show up, I get it. I understand why you can't get it to me immediately. But like, I'm now left trying to feed my family. And I thought I was going to have a box of 12 meals here to take care of the whole week. So we would send them Uber Eats or Grubhub in real time to say, hey, here's $50. Like, go order dinner for your family right now on us. And I know that it sucks. You're still going to get your refund. You're going to get your credit off next week. But go ahead and like get something now because I know it's what you need. Like I said, it wasn't all that expensive. But every time we did that, it was this moment that they didn't expect. And it made them more loyal to us, even when we fell down or when we were not at fault at all, right? Like the home burning down had nothing to do with us. But now they thought more positively about us and would tell people about it. And so there's probably a bunch more, but those are the few that come to mind where I think we were able to deliver on that in-restaurant experience that I talked about earlier in a more digital way that created the same impact that I felt when I was at Emma's.
Question. You know how when the company started with the layoffs post-COVID, one of the first things to go was the very generous benefits.
Yeah.
The free breakfast and lunch and dinner, the paternity, maternity things. It's like, it's expensive to deliver this value. And if our competition suddenly isn't as strong and, it's harder for the candidates to get a job and it's the employees market, we don't have to work so hard to make them so happy.
Right.
On the flip side, in a customer-facing business, do you feel that good customer service is the same kind of quote-unquote benefit? Where if the competition is tough and it's a saturated market, we want to stand out. We want people to love our brand. But if we have to cut costs, then we don't have to deliver the best customer experience. We don't have to be super nice. We don't have to, give them Grubhub gift cards. So we'll respond to their email a few days later. So sometimes we will give a refund. Sometimes we won't. We won't invest in that area anymore. Do you find that that's one of those areas that's being cut or treated with more scrutiny more recently, or not necessarily?
I have seen it happen. I don't like that it is happening, and I don't think that it should happen because while I don't even want to say, I think it's the same on both ends, whether it's an employee or a customer of the brand. We're not going to forget that, right? And so, okay, we're in this moment now where it feels like we can cut, maybe. But we won't always be, right? Times change. And I will always remember who was kind, courteous when they didn't have to be, versus when it was forced. So I think you sort of make or break your brand, your reputation on the employee side or the customer side when you go above and beyond and do the right thing, which isn't always going above and beyond. You're just doing the right thing. It's just, not being mean, being human. When you didn't have to be, I think that is where you create that sort of brand reputation for yourself. And so we all know who did and who didn't, and we will all remember, and that will hurt them later on in some way. So I don't like it when I come across it, and anywhere I can advise against it, I try to.
I want to ask one last question, and then we'll go to the message. But how do you get the larger team to think like good customer service? And I have a specific example in mind. So there was a user research session that we had with the larger team, including operations, and it was the equivalent of customer service. It wasn't called customer service, but it was the team responsible for interacting with customers. And the example we gave from a customer was where a customer had directions. They had to follow a certain protocol and they were confused. They didn't understand what to do, ended up losing a month of subscriptions because they didn't use it properly. It was a bad user experience overall. Mm-hmm. And the person who was responsible for the team interacting with the customers was like, I just don't get why this person was confused. It was explained to them.
Yep.
But my question is, how you need a mentality shift. Mm-hmm. You need a mentality shift of put yourself into the customer's shoes. Right. But how do you successfully train the teams that are interacting with customers to think like a customer, to step into their shoes? Is that something that can be trained? Is that hiring people with a certain trait? How do you get a team that's good? How do you get a team that's empathetic? How do you teach empathy?
So I think that I have found that it is easier in my world to get that sort of talent on the CX team. So it has not been as difficult in my experience to find really empathetic, sort of those bleeding hearts that want to work in CX and help people. I have seen that is difficult to find in other departments, and it's just not inherent to what you look for or think about when you put a job description forth. That's in product engineering, marketing, finance, you name it. It's just not something that's top of mind for them. So what I have tried to do is, when possible, try to get everybody in the inbox. Try to see if they will spend some time and answer some tickets with guidance, right? Someone over their shoulder, but feel the pain of what an agent would deal with. Be answering tickets, be in the inbox, feel that stress. And very quickly you come back and you go, oh, I didn't realize customers complained about that. Oh, I didn't realize that there's a real human on the other end of this. And it really makes it more real. And I have not found a better way to train or to get empathy out of people outside of making them feel it and knowing it and experiencing it themselves. Could we do a system? where they do this, every quarter, every month. Yes, it gets too difficult. There's a lot of logistics around it, but even just once or twice during onboarding, during their 6 months or their 1 year anniversary, coming back, spending a half a shift with the CX team and answering tickets, I think is incredibly valuable, and it lets them remember, that there is a human on the other end of this and that they have real experiences. One last thing I'll say on it is at Freshly, again, we put the CX team out in Phoenix in the same building, on the same floor as the engineering team. And so they were hearing the calls. They were walking over, watching the screens. And I think that was a little piece of the magic that made that thing work, is because the people who were going to wind up actually coding the stuff to get fixed, they cared, right? They were in the same break room. They were having lunch together. They were hearing from the CX team live, and there was no way to fake that, right? And I have not been able to, make that sort of magic happen again, but that was incredibly valuable.
What's the most powerful way to communicate with the customer? Is it phone, email, or chat?
I still believe it's phone. I know it's the most expensive and difficult channel to staff. It's live. You can only do one at a time. But there's nothing like, a human speaking to a human, hearing each other's voice on the phone, understanding like all this stuff that's lost in translation when it's written. So I think that's the most powerful channel still. But it is the most difficult to maintain, to scale, for sure.
I'll just make a note. Capsule Pharmacy.
Yeah.
I worked for them, and I think of the companies I worked for, they just had outstanding customer experience.
Yeah.
And one of their philosophies was when you call their number, there's a human answering and saying, "This is Capsule," and then that it's not a pharmacist; it's a tech who will then triage your call, right. But you don't have to sit there figuring out which button to press or repeating yourself again and again, hoping that this time you will understand what I am saying.
Yeah.
So customers really love that. Okay, so final question. People are listening to this. Most people, this is going to be the first conversation they're hearing with the head of CX. Some people will reach out to me and say, I didn't even know that was a role.
Yep.
What's the one most important message people in other roles can take away from this conversation? Not from this conversation, from Ben Siegel.
Sure.
What's the one message you have?
The one message I have is that I think there needs to be a stronger understanding of the definition of CX, right? It is the cumulative impact of all the interactions that a customer has with the brand. I think it's more than just customer service. It's more than calls, chats, emails. It's every touch point. It hits on everyone in marketing, in product, in engineering. It is unbelievably important. CX is what drives loyalty, satisfaction, brand advocacy. And I really do believe that investing there and delivering great CX creates those brand ambassadors. And we have to see it as not just one department. Everyone within the organization, from marketing to IT, they all play a role in crafting and shaping CX. And so if the one message coming out of this, I don't want you to think, oh, CX is a department and they have a head of that. I want you to think that CX is the company. And we may be responsible for handling those calls, chats, emails. But that does not live in a silo. We're gathering that information to hopefully give back to the rest of the organization so we can make real change and continuously improve. If we do that well, and we see that as the front line that we should invest in, all of a sudden the business has that beautiful feedback loop and we're constantly getting better, which in turn makes a better business. I think we can get there. But it takes investment in CX, and we need to see that as our face, our eyes, our ears, and as our most valuable tool.
I think that's very beautiful. One piece of credit I'll give you directly is, and I saw this with teams you've built, but I've seen a good customer experience team can cover for when the actual product has limitations.
Exactly.
So, and when the company where you worked at that I'm thinking of, I've had customers reach out to me and saying, hey, the product didn't work for me, but the customer service team was so amazing. They refunded me, no questions asked, even though I had already opened the package or whatever it was. and really like had that customer experience touch point not been there, or had it not been extra special, then they would have been like, that brand is a no for me. That's a no. Yeah. But instead, they have an above average perception of the brand because of what you've built.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. That was the hope. So if that came across, then we did something right.
Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you've gotten this far, thank you for listening to another one of my episodes. Remember to follow The SD Show on whichever platform you use to listen to podcasts. If you have any feedback, questions, or just want to share your own experiences, don't be shy. Hit me up on LinkedIn or email. That's sd.podcast@gmail.com. I'm all ears. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and never stop learning.